Do-do-be-doo.
And good morning. All right, so we got a couple things to talk about this morning. Primarily, I want to focus on talking about the results of the Georgia primary. Anytime. You made it.
I was just getting coffee. What the fuck? You weren't supposed to push the button.
Were you in line behind the horde?
No, I wasn't in line behind the horde. I was just...
I know. It's all the way upstairs. The coffee is all the way upstairs.
I still don't get, like, everybody but you understands why you need to put a pot down here.
I still have to go upstairs to get water. I've seriously considered plumbing a coffee pot into this office, but
Legion says, "Get your shit together, Cam." I was getting my shit together, hence why I was filling up my coffee. I thought this was
just. It's always amused me that Legion's icon, when it's in the circle like that, kind of looks like a monkey face.
It does look like a face. It looks like a monkey wearing glasses to me.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. No, monkey. No. That's hilarious if you speak Korean.
Okay, and as far as the Texas school shooting thing goes, again, we're going to delay on that just a little bit. Obviously, we've heard, and obviously we have comments, but we're going to let things develop a little bit more, make sure that we've got some facts straight. It's one thing to get, like, let's say we get something wrong about
we still don't know if the shooter's white, except they haven't told us that he's white, so we know he's not white.
Okay, Fair enough.
We know that.
I was going to say that it's one thing to get something wrong with the elections that happened here in Georgia yesterday. It's another thing to get something wrong when when kids are dead. So we're just gonna wait a little bit. It is what it is.
I will say this about it. Joe Biden had his little speech, and he said, "For God's sake, when are we going to do what needs to be done to keep our kids safe?" I'm paraphrasing a bit there.
No, you're not, really. That's almost exactly what he said.
And I agree. In fact, I'm going to share with you guys what I tweeted in response to El Presidente's statements. I thought I was.
Oh, we have Danny joining us this morning.
How the hell do I get to the tweet that I made? Good. Somebody liked it, so I have a notification here. So I replied to Reuters and added El Presidente. I said, "Good question, POTUS. When in God's name are we going to do what is necessary to defend our children? Arm the teachers and place resource officers to return fire when the enemy comes to do our children harm. Stop trusting your children to the state. They're not up to the task." It's that simple. The state is inadequate to defend your children. They will not do what is necessary. It's this simple. No amount of law will stop those who are ill-concerned with the law from doing those things which are forbidden by the law. Even if there was a law against to keep him from having the guns he had, which is another conversation. I understand apparently there was a long rifle involved, or there was a handgun involved, and he's 18, so he could very well be outside the law on that, which only serves to bolster my point. But even if it were 100% illegal for a person to have a firearm, this does not stop people who are ill-concerned with the law from owning the firearm, from putting it in their possession and making use of it. The only rational option is to have armed security everywhere that there is a threat of an armed incursion.
Yeah, courthouses have armed guards before they disarm you.
Banks do.
And banks do. Yeah, and look, I won't say how I would accomplish this goal, but if I really wanted to have a massacre at a school, I need about 20 minutes of lead time, some barbed wire, a couple gallons of gasoline, and a super soaker. I won't tell you what I would do with those things, but I promise I could make a school shooter look like a choir boy with those instruments. So it's about being concerned with the law, but we're not. Yeah, we said we're not going to talk about it,
and that's all the discussion we're going to have on it right there.
I was about to say,
I think we've done enough. But speaking of things I said on Twitter this morning, Legion says he used a Daniel Defense rifle, which is made in Georgia, and I'm not going back to the conversation about the shooting. He says, that's why I'm voting Stacy Abrams to protect our children. I've been replying to Georgia Democrats and Stacy Abrams tweets a lot lately with things like, absolutely, yeah, vote Stacy Abrams because she's dedicated to women's rights and will not stop working for women's rights in Georgia until Georgia, like New York, aborts more black babies than it has born. Vote Stacy Abrams for eugenics.
Yeah, so Stacy Abrams was out campaigning, and her campaign bus pulled into a gas station, and they were all tired, so they walked in and got some snacks, and her campaign manager said, "Hey, how do we get the future governor back to 285?" And the gas station attendant said, "Stop buying all these fucking snacks."
So, Stacey Abrams finally won an election. She won the Democrat primary in which she ran unopposed.
Like, the fact that was even a thing, okay, that they were like, oh, hey, Stacy Abrams has won her primary. Really? Okay, let's...
Yeah.
I mean, man, talk about tokenism and just all of, like, the
not just
soft
tokenism,
bigotry of low expectations.
Not just tokenism. What's Abrams' big thing? Abrams' big thing is, there's voter suppression. How much more voter suppression can you have than actively working to evade a primary contender? I understand that it happens that offices are sought by unopposed candidates. Yes, like the mayor of a small town that has 4 stop signs bolted to the same one oil drum in one.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right? That there's a great place where the chief executive of a municipality is going to run unopposed. But you're talking about a gubernatorial race, a state gubernatorial race. That is a job that is essentially analogous to the president of the country. And you're telling me that there were no other Democrats who thought that they were better suited for the job, or at least who wanted the job? No. Stacey Abrams ran unopposed because the machine has decided to anoint her. And I don't understand why. I mean, by all accounts, this fucking lunchbox came swinging that gap tooth from out of absolute left field. And I don't understand why she is the anointed one now. I mean, I've been at debates that she was in running for local offices in 10 years ago or so, and she's dumb as a box of rocks.
Well, okay,
but she's body positive and.
We see, I actually don't think that she's, I'm going to disagree. I don't think that she's dumb as a box of rocks. I think she's just willing to engage in lies so stupid that it can be difficult to distinguish between that which makes her dumb and that which makes her dishonest, okay? So, there's that, okay? But, really, who in their right mind wants to run against Stacey Abrams? Like, there's not a whole lot of politicians, Republican or Democrat, that get guest cameos in the current iteration of the dumpster fire that used to be Star Trek, right?
Right.
So, and ever since her failed gubernatorial bid, like, she's gone on The Daily Show and The View and
Star Trek.
For a politician that has had such large amounts of failure, like when she was a local politician running from a relatively safe district. That's the only thing she's ever won. Right. Anytime she's ever had to broaden her reach, she's lost. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Kemp might beat her worse this time than he did last time. Okay, one of the main things about that Perdue said, and we'll come around to that.
Yeah, we will.
But one of the main things that Perdue said was, "I'm the only one that can beat Stacey Abrams. Brian Kemp can't do it." And like, well, I would like to point out, David Perdue, he's actually done it once before, so...
And let's not forget, when Kemp beat Abrams before, like, Abrams came out and screamed, there was suppression, she accused him of fraud.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Abrams, still to this day, has not conceded her defeat in that election, and maintains that the election was stolen from her. And, by the way, that theory is perfectly allowed to be posited and argued on all social media platforms. Nobody's being deplatformed for supporting Stacey Abrams' argument that she got cheated out of her election. Never mind the fact that Stacey Abrams has been involved personally in dozens of investigations for voter fraud through the various organizations that she's involved with. And Legion mentions it, and I think I've already said on this show that we're not going to talk about 2,000 Mules on this show in any great detail for several reasons, mostly due to the nature of the evidence that is dealt with in 2,000 Mules. I cannot personally discuss that in great detail because of my background, and
And that's enough of that.
I hope that I've vagued that up enough for the NDAs, guys.
No, that's enough.
Come along.
Not allowed to discuss it. Done. It's a bad idea.
It's great. It is a great film. You should definitely go see it. The information is shocking and alarming, and the evidence that's presented there is valid and significant. Now, that said,
hey, but just
Abrams.
Go ahead.
One of the things that is a major key to the evidence developed in 2000 Mules has to do with the involvement of political nonprofit organizations. And it is those political nonprofit organizations in Georgia at which Stacy Abrams has been, like the chairman of the board or the CEO or what have you. She's been in a top leadership position at several of these NGOs and nonprofits. And those have been the things which have been investigated dozens of times throughout the entirety of her career of involvement with them, for voter fraud and voter suppression. Right? That is the business that she's been in for, I want to say, about 20 years, if not a little more. And one of the many reasons we know that she has never been busted is that she's been waved off by her sister, the judge. So the corruption there is palpable, obvious, and inignorable. Now,
so, just real quick, I'm going to go back to this whole, like, Stacy Abrams unopposed thing. Like, for real.
Yeah, okay. How the fuck do you run unopposed for governor?
Well, apparently it's not that difficult to do.
Apparently.
Now, I actually think, like, Legion says further up that Kemp has an uphill battle. Stacy's riding a racial justice wave. She'll pull 45% of the vote just by being black and female. Honestly, in any given election, anywhere, any demographic, any cross-section, any location, period, end of sentence, you're going to have about 40% that votes one way and 40% that votes the other, just about no matter what. Absolutely just about no matter what. That is just a fact. You have to go to, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, which, by the way, it was funny to hear WSB lament that she's going to be congressman again up from there, but whatever. But even in that district, okay, you had about 30% of the people that were going to vote Democrat no matter what, even though they were wildly outnumbered, okay? So, this is all true with regards to Abrams. But I think it's not just the fact that it's her turn and all of the touchy-feely good thingies that go along with it. I think it actually underlies how weak of a candidate she is, and they know it. She is, as you pointed out in your earlier monologue, a largely astroturfed candidate. She was somebody that was only known locally here in Georgia, and even then, only known locally here in Georgia by people inside of her district and people like us that pay attention to it. Like, nobody in Wisconsin knew who the fuck Stacy Abrams was 5 years ago, right? Like, she just got thrust into the national spotlight because she'd written some semi-erotic books and could actually speak and was willing to say the right things. So, I don't know.
I don't understand how she's able to articulate herself as eloquently as she does.
That's why she's a liar, not stupid. That's why I believe it.
That's a fair point. I'm just amazed that she doesn't accidentally get her tongue wedged in that gap all the time.
Well, she's had to work around she's had to work around it her entire life. It's just like her whole adult life. She's shopped at dress barns. So
you don't think she wears a black spacer for affectation?
That wouldn't be that surprising. Like, there's this whole
I want to see her get a grill and she's still got a gap.
That wouldn't be that surprising, because apparently it's like a subculture thing for black women to, like, stop fixing the gap in your teeth. Your gap is beautiful, and it's like, okay, sure, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
Dave Bowen says, I can't look at Stacy Abrams without thinking of the McDonald's grimace. That's good, Dave.
Yeah, I've used the picture. I've used the picture of her in the purple pantsuit for thumbnails a few times, and it is hilarious.
She's what would happen if Kool-Aid came in chocolate. You ever get like 3 or 4 flavors together
Kool-Aid
and they turn
chocolate
black because you've mixed too many of them together?
Dan points out that the SPLOST passed in Rockdale, and that's a tragedy.
Yeah,
we tried hard to beat that SPLOST, and it. I'll go into more detail.
You don't ever pass a SPLOST in the first place.
Yeah, I'll go into more detail on the SPLOST later, but I'll say this about it: always, always, always vote against a SPLOST. Because always what happens. Okay, a SPLOST is supposed to be for a named project. And then when the named project is funded and completed, the SPLOST goes away. What always happens is, if the named project even gets done,
right,
the SPLOST remains, gets renewed, and gets used as a slush fund for bullshit. Right now, in Rockdale County, we're actually funding first responders, police, and what would otherwise be considered vital municipal services with previous SPLOST money. And part of the argument made by these psychotics on the Board of Commissioners was that without the SPLOST, we won't be able to provide police services, fire services, etc., etc. If you can't fund the essential services that the government is expected to fund and is responsible for without a SPLOST, you have failed miserably. And just, one more little piece that I'll throw on this. I did some work for the city about year ago or so. I've done it several times, but in one in particular, I sent the city an invoice for video services where I ran a live stream for one of their events. And, I had at the time, a buddy of mine was dating a chick that worked in the office that actually cut the check. And the check came across her desk and she saw it and she said, "You should have asked for like 4 times that much, because, we just throw money all over the place. They'd have paid it." And
okay, check.
Wow, I'll keep that in mind in the future. Like, what's my regular rate? Okay. Here's put a 0 on that. Merry Christmas, taxpayers. And you know what? As taxpayers, you deserve it. You deserve to get fleeced because you voted for a SPLOST.
Well,
because you're not smart enough to hold onto your wallet.
Well, not only that, but I've been paying taxes in this county since about my 14th birthday. That's just short of 30 years ago.
Yep.
I'm okay with the county cutting me a check.
Yep.
Like, I've contributed to the system. If I had the money that I'd paid in taxes and had just put it in, like a money market account, I'd have at least like $250,000, maybe more, just sitting there waiting on me, but whatever. Look, here's something that's interesting that's worth talking about, okay?
Oh, we haven't even covered the primary results yet. Well, I mean, we dug into...
Sort of.
Yeah,
Well,
Kemp won his primary.
Here's something that's interesting, okay? Kemp won his primary. I mean, like, just smashed David Perdue. Like, 3-1 type of results, right? Herschel Walker Herschel Walker won. No big surprise there. Here is what I find interesting, though, right? Brad Ratzenberger, and yes, I said what I said.
I heard you.
Right. He won his primary with about 52% of the vote.
Yeah.
Whereas Kemp won his primary with over 70% of the vote, which I think is actually really interesting. You want to talk about a single statistic that can really punch a hole in the fact that, Southern people are stupid and don't understand nuance and can't pick between certain things. No, I would say that if you're willing to vote for Brian Kemp but vote against Brad Ratzenberger, you understand nuance perfectly well. Okay, and of course, we kind of have to dance around why that would be, because it was the most fortified election in history in 2020.
Right.
But if there's anybody to blame, one could argue that it is far more appropriate to blame the Secretary of State than it is the governor. And it's funny that he almost had to go to a runoff, whereas Kemp was never in any danger of it. Like, more and more and more, polls are useful, but just what they're useful for, I think is, I can't even define what they're going to be useful for from this point forward, because it's going to be fluid. Because what the polls said here is that, oh no, might be a runoff between David Perdue and Brian Kemp. Might be. And it's like, no, probably not. And now, of course, we have the election results, which include, by the way, the highest turnout in primary elections in Georgia history.
Yep.
Which include...
Because of all that voter suppression.
Because of all that voter suppression, exactly. So, and then that massive primary turnout, Brian Kemp just absolutely destroyed David Perdue.
Yeah, I mean, Perdue took away... Here, we've got it on Ballotopedia here. Kemp walked away with 73.5%, and I'm not surprised. Like, there are some things about Perdue that I liked, but bitch, show up on time.
Or show up.
Perdue just didn't want to win this. He didn't campaign. His campaign was weak shit, and he just didn't show up. Now, Candace Taylor here, Candace, oh God. So early on, Vernon Jones was running in this primary too, and he dropped out of the governor's primary to run for Congress. And early on, when he announced originally that he was going to run for governor against Kemp, he did a press conference at the Capitol where he talked about 2020 stuff, and I was there as press, and I published the video of his speech without commentary, just the video of his speech on Rumble, and my version on Rumble just was far and away more views than the several mainstream media outlets that were there, which was really kind of flattering. And it was largely because I was there on time and I set up sound equipment so I had better audio. But I published that, and he talked about we're going to push for investigations and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And I got flooded with comments and messages and emails from people who were telling me, oh, he stole this idea from Candace Taylor. Candace Taylor was already talking about this. Candace Taylor already drafted X, Y, and Z. And I said at the time, and I'll say it again, and this is just, oh, look, Lowry was right. Who's surprised? I said at the time, I don't know who Candace Taylor is. And let me tell you something. If you're running for governor in any state, and we haven't heard your name, you don't exist. You're not a candidate. If I don't know who you are by the time everybody's announced, if I don't know who you are by 6 months before the primary,
and I live in your state, especially.
And I live in your state, you're not a candidate. You do not exist. As evidenced here, 3.5%. 39,000. Okay, Kemp walked away with 834,000 votes. You got 39,000. Candace, the people who live within smelling distance of you, half of those people voted for you because you didn't exist. And Alex says he interviewed Candace. I watched that interview, and he's right. She was unimpressive.
To be fair,
as a candidate, she was unimpressive.
To be fair, comes across as very genuine. Okay.
Yeah, I'll give her that.
But okay. Alex also points out something else that I think is important. It goes back to... Oh my God! All right, just go ahead. Go ahead and give
There you go. That's for Legion. Oh, that's for Legion.
I want to go back to Alex's earlier.
No monkey.
I want to go back to Alex's earlier point with it's not just record turnout; it's also record Republican turnout. I think Georgia might have learned some lessons from the 2020 elections, because if you've got that many Republicans turning out to vote, that's a good sign. And honestly, going back to something else, I don't think you're going to find many people who will admit it, okay? But and Chris, I'm sure that you've had similar experiences. I've had conversations with black people that go like this. They go, okay, listen. Shh. I actually really wanted Trump to win, but you know, I got to be careful saying that shit out loud, dog. But yeah, totally. I mean, I'm on board.
Yeah. I've talked about that on the show too. I will never forget the first conversation like that I had. I won't say names, but buddy of mine that I know through Chamber of Commerce activity, we went to lunch. Black guy, right? We're at lunch at our favorite Chinese joint here in Conyers, and this was.
I won't say who it is, but I'll give you all these details.
We're in Conyers. I did not just ball him out. I guarantee. But he, we're eating lunch, and this is back when Trump was, it was still the primary. Trump was still running against every Republican ever born for the nomination.
Right.
And he was asking me, so what do you think? Who are you pulling for? I told him, man, that's easy. Not only do I want Donald Trump to win this primary and eventually the presidency, but I will guarantee you right now, based on these factors, most notably of which is that he's already talking about the 14th Amendment immigration issues, he's going to win it. That's too easy. And he goes, we're at a restaurant. It's the middle of the day. The restaurant's packed. And he goes, yeah, I think you're right, man. I think you're right. And that was one of those moments. It's just like, that's it. Alex says, so what do you think happens in the 10th now that it's down to Vernon and Collins?
Hold on.
I'll tell you the truth. Well, I'll just say this real quick. I'll tell you the truth, Alex. I don't know enough about Collins yet, so I need to read up a little more, and I haven't actually met Collins. I talked to Vernon the other night at the 2000 Mules movie, but I haven't talked to Collins yet, so I really don't have an informed answer for that question. But Steve says he thinks that Vernon bails again. I don't know. I don't think the numbers are right there for you, Steve.
It's my understanding that the reason why Vernon shifted from governor to Congress it wasn't that he was trying to bail on the governor's race. It was the strategic play. He would get the Trump endorsement, and he would be in a district he was frankly more likely to win if he moved over and ran for Congress in the 10th district. So if you want to say that he bailed, I can see that interpretation. I just don't know that I agree with it. But I am going to predict that what is going to happen is that one might be a pretty nasty race. But I wanted to go back to something with Kemp and Abrams and the voter turnout and all that. But I guess I'm not gonna, because it was like right there. Man, I need to drink way more coffee in the mornings. Man, you know what it is, man? I used to have a day job, and I would do the show literally minutes before walking into my day job.
Right, so you've been up long enough to have left the house and been squirreling down coffee.
Now I have a night job, and I literally have to drag myself out of bed and slam that first cup of coffee down so I can function for the show.
You should sleep less.
No, bullshit. You don't sleep less, sir. When you give up that nap permanently, then you could tell me to sleep less. Don't you do it. You had permanently gave up that nap just because you've had to forego it recently.
Recently is for a little better than 6 months. I have not been getting my nap, and I'm still sleeping from roughly 10 to 4 at best most nights. Yeah. Anyway, y'all be safe out there. I need to have left 5 minutes ago. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow. Oh, and go vote. Vote
in November.
Hey, that's the last thing I want to hit real quick. Like we mentioned, record turnout this year, And Cameron pointed out, maybe Republicans learned something from 2020. I think more importantly, Republicans learned something from early 2021, and that is that you cannot lose hope and knuckle under to the theories and the suspicions that the elections are no longer safe and secure, because quite simply the fact is this: if the elections are not secure, if you cannot trust them to be free and fair, it doesn't matter if you don't try. If you do not show up, if you're so afraid that the election will be stolen that you don't go on and vote, then they will not have to steal it. You still need to vote.
Yeah, it's I used to, in another life, I missed this gentleman. He was a country boy, and he used to say, "Well, you never kill a deer sitting on your couch drinking coffee."
Right. Oh, okay. I really do need to get off the air, but Dan says camp out at drop boxes. This is something that I brought up with Vernon the other night at the film showing, and I talked to a couple of county GOP chairman about. I'm gonna talk to Larry and a few other people about. I want to get some momentum behind this idea. Dan says camp out at drop boxes. More importantly, all the drop boxes were supposed to have surveillance cameras running on them at all times. Several did not. There were several of them where either in stark violation of the law, the surveillance cameras were not installed by the state where they were supposed to be installed, or they were non-functional, like in Epstein's jail cell where a crime was in progress and they just happened to not have the video cameras running, or in the Buffalo situation where they just happened to fail at that particular time. So, what we need to do, citizen journalists with their private cameras, organized in shifts, and it could be your phone, it could be your GoPro, it could be a couple of grand worth of freaking camcorder, whatever. It could be the webcam on your computer. The point is, organized citizen journalists running visible, active, constant surveillances on all drop boxes 24 hours a day through the entirety of the early voting and voting seasons. That is where we need to go. So anybody who wants to get involved and help me organize that is something that I'm working on now, and I'm going to be working on it hard from now till November. And with that, I really do need to have left 10 minutes ago. Love you guys.
Let me make another point. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Now you know how it feels to be me sometimes.
I'm going to polish your forehead with a pair of nunchucks. You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah.
Deuces.